Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
The medical marijuana. The medical marijuana. Radio show. The medical marijuana for you and me. Ah, yeah, the medical marijuana. Whoa, 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 yeah, the medical. It's the medical marijuana show. You will know.
I want to talk to you. I want to talk to you. Hey, boy, don't feel my world untrue. Yeah, I want to talk to you. My world can be true if you do what I tell you to. I want to talk to you.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome once again to Medical Marijuana Radio for Saturday, the 23rd of May, 2015. I'm your host, Larry Love, and we're here every Saturday to bring you the latest information on medical marijuana and adult use from around the globe. And this week we have some interesting stories for you and a great interview with John Hagen, one of the founders of CannabisTube.net. CannabisTube.net is one of the places that Medical Marijuana Radio loads up their shows, and it's the YouTube for the cannabis industry. Lots of great videos. We'll be talking to John in the second part of the show. But first, as always, we have some news for you.
1, 2, 3.
And backing up on last week's interview with Michael Krawitz, in a historic vote, the Senate Appropriations Committee approved a Veterans Medical Marijuana Amendment. For the first time, the Senate has voted on marijuana law reform. The amendment would allow VA doctors to recommend medical marijuana to their patients in states where it is legal. The Senate Appropriations Committee passed a bipartisan amendment just the other day, this past week, 18-12, allowing Veterans Administration doctors to recommend medical marijuana to their patients in states where medical marijuana is legal. The vote is the first time the U.S. Senate has ever moved marijuana law reform legislation forward. Veterans in medical marijuana states should be treated with the same as any other resident and should be able to discuss marijuana with their doctor and use it if it's medically necessary, said Michael Collins, policy manager for the Drug Policy Alliance. They have served this country valiantly, and at least we can do is allow them to have full and open discussions with their doctors. So this is fantastic news, and of course we talked about it last week. It went down in a previous vote, but now veterans who have served us well will be able to use cannabis in their states. Now, this next one is a study about how marijuana may hold promise in preventing heart disease. A study suggests that marijuana may have the same effect as drugs commonly taken to prevent heart disease. Marijuana contains a group of compounds that scientists believe could provide new treatments for cardiovascular disease. Experiments in animals suggest that these compounds, called cannabinoids, may protect against a wide range of conditions, including hypertension, stroke, atherosclerosis, and heart attacks. Now, scientists at the University of Nottingham School of Medicine have shown that cannabinoids can have the same effect in human patients. Published in the Journal of Pharmacological Research, the team led by Dr. Saros O'Sullivan found that cannabinoids affect blood vessels by causing them to relax and widen. According to the researchers, the study was the first to demonstrate this response in human tissue samples. Relaxation of the blood vessels is known to lower blood pressure and improve circulation. In fact, a class of drugs called vasodilators are already used to treat diseases like hypertension, heart failure, angina, and vasodilators are also popular for maintaining low blood pressure in patients at risk for developing heart problems. On the other hand, some of Dr. O'Sullivan's previous work suggests a compound in marijuana called cannabidiol could offer similar benefits. The researchers conclude that more investigation is needed on the interaction of different diseases and medications with the cardiovascular effects of cannabinoids. Recently, another team at the University of Nottingham presented findings at the annual UK Stroke Forum conference showing that cannabinoids may protect the brain after a stroke. And we've seen some of these studies before. Now, getting back to New Mexico here where I am from, there's been some a lot of things going on with out of the country and out of state people coming in to circumvent the law of the Linen, Air, and Compassionate Act and set up companies that are managing these nonprofits, so-called nonprofits. So there's a great alliance down in Albuquerque, the New Mexico Medical Cannabis Patients Alliance. They had a meeting last week, and here is some of what they talked about and what they do for sticking up for patients and the program. This is Tim Scott, the outgoing president, talking about the Sacred Garden Nutritional High merger that may or may not take place, and also one of Sacred Garden's principals putting in for another application with an out-of-state company called the Green Solution. Here is Tim Scott earlier this week.
In the state of Colorado, to be an extractor in the state of Colorado, to do anything in the cannabis industry, you must be a resident of the state. Therefore, it's going to more benefit the state. I think it's a great thing. Here, we don't have anything of that nature. With that, we've got somebody from Sacred Garden that is, from what we're understanding in the rumor, that they're putting an application in with somebody from Colorado. Group in Colorado is Green Solution. Green Solution has 9 locations in Colorado that are under quarantine right now because of their pesticide use. Bad practices we do not need in New Mexico. They are putting an application in with part of the people from Sacred Garden. We can't have that. That's going to hurt our patients. That's something that we need to fight. I spoke with Andrea on this today, and what we need to do is we need to get a letter put in proposing that be put into the rules. It's not going to be something that's going to take place overnight. It's going to take a long time. That letter is going to be addressed to the secretary. We can submit it through Andrea, and she will get it to the secretary, but it will be directly addressed to the secretary of the Department of Health. I think this is something that the Alliance needs to get behind just to save our program. We've got Canada coming in with Sacred Garden. You know? Okay, with all this, we've put in a little bit of an insight to the DOH. They were unaware of Green Solutions issues in Colorado, their quarantine. Well, I made them aware of it today. I sent an email with links from the Denver newspaper and from the Colorado, I know it was Colorado Cannabis Industry, something or other, that was the ones that were mandating the quarantine on this. So we sent that information over to the Department of Health today.
They were not aware of it at all.
They were not aware of the pesticide issues for Green Solution. They were aware of Green Solution partnering with Sacred Garden to be a producer, a new applicant for a producer. So what this is going to do, by us informing them, they can't have any personal outside knowledge of any issues with somebody, with an applicant, and put that forward on their grade. They have to grade straight down the middle so it's all fair. But what they can do, and what Andrea said that she'll do by what I did today, is send a memo to Secretary Ward, letting her know about the pesticide issue in Colorado when they go to committee to vote on who gets these applications, or gets gets these licenses. So it could very well factor in whether or not they get licensed.
Hopefully it does. Obviously, we know that Sacred Garden, at their own admission, is $1 million in the hole with money that their principals had put in, and to allow them to have a second place is totally despicable, and that's my favorite word of the week. So thank the Alliance for working hard to keep this program in New Mexico and not have this poor state's money being sent out to either Canada or Colorado. Moving on, last week there was HempCon, and there were several arrests at HempCon and also at a convention in Las Vegas. So even with legalization states and legal events, there are still people that are busting people. So here is a report from HempCon last week.
Controversy tonight over a medical marijuana convention held over the weekend. We've learned about several arrests made there, and now there's backlash against the organizers. Vanessa Murphy is here with the details. Vanessa.
Paula, I went to the event on Sunday after I heard about these arrests. It was supposed to end in the evening, but by the afternoon, it seemed to be shutting down because of the police presence and the arrests over the weekend. Now, organizers are blaming the police. The city seems to be blaming organizers, and people are calling the event a mess.
We want to be on the same page as law enforcement.
That wasn't the case at HempCon Fest held at the Cashman Center last weekend. Those boos are for undercover officers. Metro Police say 10 people were arrested, 3 received citations, 5 booths were shut down, and products and drugs like edibles and mushrooms were confiscated. This is video provided by Edibles List, which runs a magazine about edibles.
I just hope that in the near future and in the coming years that there can be more of a collaborative effort between not only event organizers, but between people in the medical marijuana community cooperating with regulatory agencies so that we can all find a happy medium.
Josh Dean was working at a vendor booth and says he saw a heavy police presence. There were uniformed officers and undercovers from a drug task force. By the third and final day, Metro Police say it appeared 1/3 of the vendors had left. Attendees spoke out on Twitter and Instagram, complaining about the medical marijuana convention and the busts. HempCon Fest organizers released a statement to 8 News Now saying in part, they're disgusted and confused that the event was targeted by law enforcement, intimidating vendors and discouraging attendees. A city spokesman says according to the business licensing department, the promoter was given strict instructions on marijuana regulations by the city before the event.
I can tell you that HempCon won't be back to the Cushman Center. Cashman Center, I apologize. I'm not from Nevada.
At least he said Nevada, right? To be clear, police say they were only targeting those who were breaking the law at HempCon Fest. Now, last year, HempFest, that's another festival, was held in Clark County for the first time. We were there covering it. There was not a noticeable police presence, and many people were smoking pot in the open. In fact, a performer thanked Metro Police for backing off. We're looking into why the 2 events were handled differently by police. Dave.
So, again, even with legalization, there's still lots of restrictions. So when you go to these events, make sure you know what the rules are so you don't get in trouble. Next up, from the Cannabis TV, Richard Baca from the Denver Post. They have a nice little show. Here's an excerpt from a show that they did recently on vaping versus smoking. Vaping versus smoking. Here we go.
In your opinion?
I think it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I don't know.
Sure.
But I mean, it just makes sense if you're combusting at a much lower temperature than lighting something on fire. I mean, that's got to be better. And anecdotally, I mean, it feels better on my lungs if I use a vape pen versus smoke a joint. So I think that it is. What would be interesting is if, you know, thetruth.com and whatever, they do their studies, and if they find that although nicotine e-cigarettes are not safe, but they happen to be safer than cigarettes, then okay, they just showed that it's safer.
I'm really looking forward to the science. You know, as a journalist, we thrive on information, correct information, factual information, and so I'm really looking forward to the science that's to come to tell us, because certainly when you're inhaling vapor, it feels better on your lungs. It feels less invasive than smoke. If you have access to any studies that
I could forward it to you, because they have captured samples, and it's amazing. I mean, like the list, and even just cannabis, if we just keep it to cannabis, smoked cannabis, probably I believe numbers like 130 different components and chemicals that come from lighting, because you're not just lighting THC, you have all that green matter, right? And of course, I, like even old schoolers like myself, swear by it, you know, but none of that stuff you need, and it's none, and that's why in recreating the vape pen and trying to keep it strain specific, I want to make sure that I'm bringing everything we need. And of course, there are old school guys that are like, well, it's nothing like smoking. And so I'm like, oh, so those other chemicals are what you're after. No, it's like literally 100+ chemicals in something that's combusted, and in a vape pen, it's not. It's just the ones you put in.
And
propylene glycol THC resin.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the point. It is nothing like smoking, you know. And we have a Ask the Cannabist columnist who she answers reader questions. She does a really great job of that. But somebody was asking about the high from vaporizing, and she said that some people quite accurately call it kind of like a half high, because it's not giving you the jolt that smoking flower will. Would you guys agree with that?
I definitely would.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more mild. I don't get
mild,
it's not as intense. Although if you take 3 or 4 hits off a vape pen, I mean, you get high.
The analogy we use internally is we want to be more like the wine, right? So if dabbing is spirits and whiskey, and smoking a joint is kind of like that, we want to be more like the wine or the beer, right? It doesn't knock you down, but you can continue to vape it and eventually not be at a half high.
You know, I would say dabs are more like the grain alcohol
yes, exactly,
of this world, because and granted, I've not dabbed, Brian. Props, because wow, I can't.
I mean, I had
imagine.
to try it, right? Because I sell it, but.
Yeah, do you have to try that?
I wish I could be in the boat with you guys. With the torch, it was a little bit much, but with the advent of the electric nail, the minute I saw that, like a couple of hemp cons ago, a couple of years back, lines of people. I love in the cannabis industry how everything goes out the window, right? Like, it doesn't matter how grimy the hippie in front of you is. If somebody's giving free dabs, as soon as he steps away, you're stepping up to that piece of glass. It's so crazy. But the electric nails were amazing. We were at the Cow Palace in San Francisco, and the fire marshal had just been through saying, no smoking, no open flames. And literally there was like a chuckle, because every single vendor had like an e-nail there, and people were just dabbing, and like the rise of concentrates was happening, I guess, like 2013. So of course I got one of these electric nails, and of course, since I'm constantly in the nectar collecting business and making wax, it's hard not to taste it, but it is strong, and it is something that even I, as a would-be cannabis professional, only use at home, because I remember the first time I dabbed, it was like the thought that went through my mind was like, it's high school high. It was like that high that that I'd forgotten about. Oh wait, you can actually be too high, and but.
You definitely can be too high. I think a lot of our viewers could understand that and sympathize.
So I agree. Of course, as you know, I'm old school, but I do like vaping, and vaping for me is a much clearer, mellow high. And of course, if you want to get that extra step, get that heady thing going or that body thing going, then the smoking is a much different high than vaping. Now, moving on, before we take a break, a couple more things. Connecticut is getting all set up with their medical program, and this is a company called TheraPlant, using a creative approach to producing medical marijuana for Connecticut, and they're very strict about what they do. Unfortunately, I can't show you the video on this, but here is a walk through the TheraPlant in Connecticut.
Medical marijuana, it's an up-and-coming industry here in Connecticut. Legalized 3 years ago, licensed facilities grow it and dispensaries sell cannabis to patients.
So tonight, our cameras get an exclusive first look inside a medical marijuana production facility here in Connecticut. Fox Connecticut's Jen Bernstein brings us the story. Jen.
Brent, Katie, it's a highly regulated industry here in Connecticut. There is constant oversight by the Department of Consumer Protection. Tonight, we have a first look inside of TheraPlant. It's a highly secure facility. As soon as we drive onto TheraPlant property, our license is recorded. Cameras watch our every move. We're greeted by a security guard behind bulletproof glass and reinforced walls. It's all to protect a new industry here in Connecticut, the production and sale of medical marijuana. To get a look inside, we need to suit up.
We can't have any type of pollen coming in or any type of bacteria coming from the outside world.
Then another round of security, an eye scan. Matches a worker's pass, and we're in.
So we'll start right at the beginning.
Ethan Ruby is the CEO of TheraPlant, one of 4 facilities licensed to grow in Connecticut. It's now fully operational. Ruby built the business from the ground up.
We took painstaking steps to design this building to be as safe and secure as possible to grow the best medicine possible. We started everything from a seed.
In the propagation room, the grown plants with the best genetics are chosen to become the moms. Workers then clip parts of the plant from the mom and plant them. All the while, music plays while employees nurture the young plants.
Music in every room was actually something very important to me.
Ruby's philosophy: happy employees make for a better work environment. TheraPlant currently employs more than 30 full-time workers.
So here we have the flower room. As you can see, the plants are much bigger.
The cannabis plants are then brought here for a 12-12 light cycle. 12 hours on, 12 hours off, which signals the plant to produce the flowers. The medicinal value of marijuana is in the buds. Temperature, humidity, water, nutrients, and airflow are tightly monitored by both workers and computers.
You can tell how deep green it is. Very healthy, happy plant.
When harvested and dried, it's time to cure selected buds, a painstaking process. TheraPlant workers sit side by side and trim.
Once the marijuana is harvested and cured, it's then time to extract the medicine from the plant that are in these buds, and they do it in this room.
The medical marijuana can be sold in its raw form, though Mr. Fung is in charge of making alternative forms of medical marijuana.
We often grind the flowers up so there's more surface area.
The buds are put in this CO2 extraction machine. This is where the medicine is pulled from the dried marijuana. The essential oils are collected and are then mixed to become one smooth, homogeneous mixture. It's then put in either pill form or in tinctures, an oral solution patients put under their tongue. TheraPlant is also making a medicated bomb. The process of putting medicine into the product is measured and precise.
Mostly important for the patients is that every product that leaves one of these producers goes through mandatory testing by an independent laboratory, and exactly what those test results are found on the side of every bottle.
Ruby says tight regulations make Connecticut's medical marijuana top-notch.
I believe that this is the safest, most effective medical marijuana you can find in this country.
TheraPlant has invested millions of dollars into the facility, and Ruby says they won't turn a profit for months, possibly several years.
We're in for the long haul. We're investing in science.
Now, TheraPlant sells their products to dispensaries where trained pharmacists work with patients, and there are 6 of those here in the state.
So now, what is the patient base like for this?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, this is obviously a new industry here. They do say, or Ruby says, that there's a small patient base right now, but they're hoping to expand on that as they get out the word.
That is such a sophisticated operation. You can see it will take it'll take a long time to recoup their investment.
Yeah, they've only been up and running like that, full capacity, for the last about 6 months.
All right. Jen, thank you.
Anyway, I congratulate Connecticut for having such great restrictions, and I congratulate the TheraPlant for being so thorough with the way they do things. If you watch the video, and you can go to YouTube and see that, they're wearing white coats, their beards are covered, they're wearing covers over their shoes. It's really a medicinal program, and I wish that the people in other states would follow suit. Now, before we take a break and then come back with our guest, David Letterman signed off the air a couple days ago, and I just want to play you one last clip from him discussing smoking pot with Oprah Winfrey.
With regard to your the girls that you have in school in South Africa, and yourself, and society and culture in generally. What do you think about smoking weed? Are you smoking?
Actually, no. I haven't smoked weed in 30 years, really.
Now, I remember when I lived in California,
Yeah.
years and years and years ago,
Yeah.
and you could smoke an entire joint, and then you'd say, I'm kind of hungry. And that'd be it.
Yeah.
But now people tell me this stuff is one hit, and suddenly you're orbiting Neptune.
Really?
Yes, you're.
I'd be
falling
kind of
for
scared
your-
of that.
Yeah, I'd be scared of it too.
If you had, in the
No,
old days.
I had to quit. Because I tell you, I think I told you why I quit.
No,
One night, I find myself standing in front of the freezer. I ate 2 pints of ice cream. And I just said, well, this
For
can't be
me, it was
good
a
for
sleeve
anyone.
of Oreos. It was a sleeve of
You
Oreos.
ate the Oreos.
A sleeve of Oreos, man. You know, you're like, wow, I'm
But
a
it
little
just,
hungry.
it makes you feel dumb, the smoking the weed, you know? Made me. What do you think, boys? So I bid David Letterman a heartfelt goodbye. We'll be right back with our guest, John Hagan from CannabisTube.net, after these words.
It's all about the